Hey YouTube, I'm Mars1952, and today I'm going to talk about battery terminal maintenance. An alert viewer pointed out that I was using pliers on my battery terminals. The last video I made, at least the last video I made about batteries, and I was using these pliers, and these belong to my dad. He got these probably when 1950 or so, not too long after he got back from World War II, the late 40s maybe. I inherited them. These are legitimate battery terminal pliers. Now I'll have to use one of these new ones here. Where are they? So they're designed to fit right on these square bolt heads on the battery terminals, so that you can turn this side loose with a regular wrench. But sometimes the terminals are corroded, and you can use one of these on both sides, and it fits pretty well. And actually they work so well that you can use them on the regular bolt heads without damaging them. And I've used this for decades. So that's what I was using during the video. And he had a valid point. A lot of people mess up their battery terminals with pliers. But where that usually starts, though, is that the bolts and the battery terminal is all corroded, and it's stuck. The bolt is sort of welded together with corrosion, and the nut on the bolt is not as big as it used to be. Now, somewhere in here I have a wrench that's just the right size for these nuts, but I don't use it very often because this works so well. I've had this truck since 2001. That's over 12 years. I'm the only one that ever touched the battery terminals, and they're still in great condition. Now, there's several things that you can do to keep your battery terminals in good condition and make them easy to use. The first thing you want to do is thoroughly clean them, even when it's brand new. When this truck was brand new, it wasn't even a week old, I took apart all the battery terminals, including taking these bolts all the way off. And since it was brand new, it didn't need much cleaning, but I lightly polished these so that everything was nice and clean, and I coated it before I put it back together. I coated it with this stuff. It probably came out of this bottle because this has lasted me a long time. This is Permatex Anti-Seize. Never Seize is a brand name. I'm not sure I've ever actually had any plain old Never Seize, but just about any brand of this stuff will work. This has aluminum powder in it and grease, some kind of special grease, and if you put a bolt together with this, as long as it doesn't get hot, it'll never seize up. Now, they sell a high temperature Never Seize for things that get up, like exhaust manifold bolts and stuff like that. That'll work on your battery terminals as well. They don't get hot, so you don't need to buy two of them. Anytime I buy Never Seize now, I buy the high temperature stuff because it'll work on low temperature applications too. But anyway, take these things apart, clean them, coat them. And on these terminals, I coated them all the way up to the rubber, and inside and out, up on the bottoms, the tops, the bolts, everything. Coated them and put them back together, and they won't corrode. Now, in the cheap batteries and batteries that we used to have all the time when I was younger, those gas off more than these modern batteries. This is a die-hard with spiral technology. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it doesn't gas off at all. It's totally sealed up. There's no place for gas to come out. So the terminal's never going to wear out because of the battery on this one. But if you have a regular lead acid battery, even if it's a maintenance-free battery that has the terminals, the caps mostly sealed up, gas can still come out of there and cause your terminals to corrode. And one circumstance where it will gas a lot is if your voltage regulator goes bad and you overcharge the batteries. Now, not you, but the alternator will overcharge the batteries. I've had a battery boil, actually. I turned off the car and got out of it, and I heard this funny noise under the hood. I popped the hood, and the battery was boiling. There's so much gas coming off of it. So that ruined the battery. So, but anyway, getting back to the case in hand. So, grease up your battery terminals, they'll last forever. Here's a tool that I bought a long time ago. This is pretty aggressive. It's used to clean out the inside of the terminal. It'll take off a lot of material if you have a terminal that's really screwed up. and these are for the outside. One for the positive, one's for the negative. Now somewhere the negative terminal spring that cuts on there went away, lost. So I only use that mostly for cleaning out the insides. For the battery terminals themselves, I've got a brush, actually a couple of these. This will polish up the inside of the terminals pretty well, of the clamps, and then this will polish up the outside. I have two of these, one that I use on positive terminals and one that I use on negative terminals because they're different sizes. One will work on both though. And so we've got the battery terminal pliers. I've got another pair of these that I keep in another location. These are made by Snap-on. I've got these special pliers. These are for spreading the battery terminals. Let me get the replacement one out of here again. You slide this in and you can spread it. Now when you put these on when you maintain these and put them on, make sure you do not over tighten this. This is just lead and this whole thing will stretch. I've bought used cars before where these clamps were stretched so much that this part was touching. There's no gap in the middle. So there was no way to tighten it anymore, and it wouldn't tighten up enough to clamp onto the battery terminal. So just enough pressure, just enough so it's on there. It doesn't want to scoot around. I think ideally it would be on there clamped tight enough that you could actually work it loose by hand if you had to, especially with the grease on there, this never sees. And with the never sees on there, you really can't clamp it down tight enough that it can't be worked loose. But like I said, I had this on this truck for 13 years and I haven't had any problem with it coming loose when I didn't want it to. So in that video that I showed, I took this terminal off and I used this, and since it was all greased up, everything worked really nice, and I just grabbed it and I turned it a few knots and then worked it by hand and pulled it loose. So that tripped the trigger of my alert viewer, and I'll put his name up here probably earlier in the video and put a link to his page. He's apparently a mechanic that has lots of experience with having to deal with people screwing stuff up. Here's another tool. It's a battery terminal puller. This clamps over the battery terminals, then using the screw it'll pull the battery terminal off without bending it or breaking it. These are great, and especially works great if you have a terminal, a clamp that's all corroded to the point where you can't get it off. Just pull it off, clean it up, grease it up with never sees, put it back on, it'll work for a long time. I think that's about it for my special tools. All right, talk to you later.